Good morning. It's always the hardest part. I know it's fun to feel the great energy in the room. So good morning and welcome back to the Good Leadership Breakfast. Today kicks off our fall series with our 115th meeting right here today. We're thrilled to have you here. Over the next 3 breakfasts this fall, we'll continue to take a deeper dive into the pathway to healthy accountability, culminating with a book celebration on November 14th featuring Jude Bricker of Sun Country Airlines. We hope to see you there. My name is Julie McDonough. I'm the Minnesota Market President for Old National Bank. Old National is proud to be the presenting sponsor of the Good Leadership Breakfast, and I'm thrilled to be here as one of your co-hosts today. As we get started, I'd like to also thank our meeting sponsor today, Cadre. Cadre is a mental health app. It's for individuals and employers. It's a safe, user-friendly platform that creates a space for people to connect, share, and learn. And you can learn more about Cadre by going to their website at cadre.io. Now I'd like to turn your attention back to our screens for a commercial from Old National Bank.
At Old National Wealth Management, you get the whole team.
I'm all about team, coach. So who's my quarterback?
Wealth advisor, that's me.
Player coach, I love it. Who's my running back?
Private banker.
Wide receiver?
Financial planner, one team to grow your wealth.
Now that's moving the chains. Let's talk about protection.
Never blindsided by market fads.
That's a heck of a playbook, coach. Welcome to the team. Fire feet! Let's go! Move those feet! Move!
Go with the winning investment game plan. Choose Old National Wealth Management. Get old.
Okay, we like to have a little fun at Old National. I'd also like to introduce another one of our wonderful sponsors. Our 7F sponsor is Irish Titan, and we're going to watch a short video by them and then hear from their CEO, Darren Lynch.
Sláinte, we're Irish Titan. We take our commitment to building and growing e-commerce channels very seriously. For you Simon Sinek fans, we have a golden circle. Our why is business first, online second. Our how is partnerships, not transactions. And our what is building and growing e-commerce channels. Irish Titan has 3 uniques. So if nothing else, please remember these 3 things. First is business first, online second. Second is our Titan only model. And third is our high touch, deep expertise, full service experience. Business first, online second. That's our why, and it means that it's not about bits and bytes or pixels or keywords. It's about how e-commerce amplifies your business strategies. Our Titan only model means that 100% of our work is done by our employees, who we refer to as our Titans. No contractors, freelancers, or offshore resources. And lastly, Irish Titan's high touch, deep expertise, full service approach has been offering a white glove, green glove, experience in building and growing e-commerce channels since 2004. Thanks again. Sláinte.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to another series of the Good Leadership Breakfast. What's the theme for the series this fall? I know it's healthy accountability, but what's the theme?
Yeah, that's it.
Just healthy accountability?
Pathway to healthy accountability.
You can tell I prepared for the opening remarks. So welcome to another healthy accountability theme. I think the whiteboard video does a good job of describing who Irish Titan is, but quick recap. We're an e-commerce agency, so we build and grow e-commerce channels. That means that if you or someone you know are selling product online, whether that's direct to consumers or to another business, if you're a manufacturer, distributor, supplier, et cetera, we'll build those e-commerce websites with shopping cart functionality, et cetera, and then we'll also work with our merchants for their grow activities, as we refer to them, their acquisition, conversion, retention strategies like email marketing, paid search, SEO, those sorts of things. We're closed only 2 days a year, St. Patrick's Day and the day after. I think that there are, to the credit of the Good Leadership team, there are tons of friendly faces here that we have seen time and time again, year after year. And so congratulations to the Good Leadership team for that. For those of you who fall into that category, you've heard me say many times why Irish Titan and why I sponsor Good Leadership, support the cause, et cetera. And so when I was meticulously and studiously and far in advance preparing for these comments, meaning on my drive here, I thought I would take a little bit different approach to describing why we sponsor it so passionately. And I think that that's because With the size of Irish Titan, I consider myself to be actually in the people business. The leadership and management of Irish Titan falls into the category of people business now. And I think everybody in this room falls into that category, either because you're a leader, because of your role, because if you're in management, you're in leadership, or you're a leader because you're a center of influence, or you're an aspiring young professional who wants to be a leader. And everything we learn here helps our leadership. And I think we have some Titans in here, so I hope they would agree that I think that the tools and models and frameworks and things that we learn here help us all be better leaders. And that's why I and Irish Titan like to sponsor, participate, and benefit from good leadership and healthy accountability in particular. So thanks, everybody. Have a good Friday, good breakfast. Talk soon.
Thanks, Darren. To show you how ready Darren was, I literally jetted back through an old National Bank video, started like, Darren, you're up next. Hi guys, my name is JC Lippold. I am the co-host of the Good Leadership Breakfast, and I spend a lot of time doing exactly what Darren just shared, right? Spending time with people who know that their business, their mission, their vocation is people, right? And how do we stir up goodness in ourselves and in one another? Before we dive into an exercise that we start pretty much every breakfast with, I want to go ahead and share a little bit about one more series sponsor that we have who's joining in making this happen for all of you today. Heidi, will you wave? Hi, Heidi Olson. Heidi Olson from All-in-One Accounting. Let's give her a round of applause. All-in-One Accounting is dedicated to mission-driven nonprofits and growth-minded entrepreneurs and going, how do we support you in doing the thing you feel called to do? So thank you for helping the breakfast happen this fall. And with no further ado, the 7Fs wheel presented by Irish Titan. This is how we get ready to spend time together this morning, where we're going to do a lot of things that you will be able to bring out of this room. The 7Fs wheel, simple information, deep with an activation. You can take this tool every single day, and it's going to change in how you answer these questions, but it's going to open you up to be able to go, here's where I am right now. So you'll go ahead and see in your hymnal this morning, if you flip in there to the exercise. The exercise asks you 7 very simple questions. 1 being, this thing could not be any worse in your life right now. 10 being, it could not be any better in your life right now. Faith, family, finances, fitness, friends, fun, and future. So take a moment using your good leadership pen to go ahead and circle 7 numbers, 1 in each of these 7 areas, 1 being the worst, 10 being could not be better in your life. All right. So you took a little bit of time to consider where you are at today. One of the other things we're going to do at the breakfast a lot today is engage you as a collective to collect some data, and we're going to do that for the first time right now. So if you can get out your cell phones and click on the QR code up on the screen, or you'll also see on your table a closer QR code if you're far away from the screen. Use the QR code to go to our Slido.com, and there's going to be a prompt there asking you which of the 7Fs are you most satisfied with today. Now again, satisfied doesn't mean which one are you a 10 on, but which one are you like, this one is actually going in the right direction. This is feeling good right now. Feeling groovy and feeling, it looks like family as we kick off today. Let me go and ask something. Who's been to the Good Leadership Breakfast before? Welcome back. Who's done the 7Fs exercise more times than you can count? Thanks for playing along. For those of you who said family, how many is because it's a 10 versus it's better than it was yesterday? Or all of a sudden my appreciation for it is better than it was yesterday. If you're doing the 7Fs exercise for the first time today, we encourage you to go ahead and take this exercise out again and again, maybe around the kitchen table at home or maybe around the conference table at work, and say, let's check in with how we are doing as human beings. Because if we do that, then we know that when we walk into work, we're going to do something very different. Because the one thing I will point out here, right, there's a splattering across everything except literally nobody said fun. That's fun. That's fun that nobody said fun. We're going to make sure that we get someone to say fun by the time the breakfast is done today. If you're the person who goes like, okay, I'm satisfied with my fun, come up and let us know. But here's the deal. At Good Leadership, we really invite you to focus on what's happening at work and what's happening in the rest of your life, not from a space of balance, but from a space of blend. All the people who are walking into your workspace are going, what does it mean to be a part of this team, a part of this family, a part of this mission? And all the healthy accountability work that we've been doing, that you're going to hear more and more about today, is woven into an exercise like 7Fs. if you invite people to see all the things that bring you to your high performance in your work, and those are things like we just talked about, you're going to see big changes in your work, big changes in your environment, and big changes in those people that you are leading. So let's move on. Julie.
Great. Thank you, JC. Now it's time for me to introduce the creator of this event. He is the founder and CEO of Good Leadership. He's quickly becoming the thought leader on healthy accountability, and he's always a constant voice for how goodness pays in leadership and business. Please join me in welcoming Paul Batz.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's really fun to be back here. Thank you. It seems like from May to September is like a lifetime. So thank you very much for being here today. We talked a lot about this subject, which is accountability, healthy accountability. And the reason we did this research is because focusing on the word accountability created an emotional response that we weren't actually anticipating. Healthy is what we're learning is the most important part of this conversation. So you're going to help us define what healthy means to you. Please pull out your phones again. The next Slido exercise, the audience poll, is I want to know what's the one word that comes to your mind that's a synonym for healthy. That's fun. Look at that. It's hard not to be happy when you look up at those words. Balance, happy, positive, fit. I see goodness up there, perspective. Yeah, well, what was interesting about it, the reason why we decided to do this research came from this formula right here. So we do organizational effectiveness work. In order to do that work, you have to unite people in doing something or different or building something special. That's what we do. It starts with good leaders who know how to get other people to believe. And we use this formula, O times D equals U squared. What it means is opportunity is motivating. Also, dissatisfaction is motivating. We all know that dissatisfaction actually motivates us faster with more intensity than opportunity does. But we can't make anything cool happen unless we find someone, which is U2, U squared, that shares that sense of urgency. So it was about 2.5 years ago that there was a pattern inside our client base, and one particular person came with a source of dissatisfaction, and it was this. The conversation was that we're living in an era where we're doing a lot of things that we didn't used to do, and I say the general we, those of us who are business owners and executives. And I know this to be true by talking to my children, who are adult kids now, who are between 30 and 35. And I'm thinking about the wellness and the flexibility and the benefits and stuff that they have that we wouldn't even thought about when I was their age. And so there's been huge investments, and yet the C-suite teams that we work with are saying, we're just not seeing an increase in the basics of accountability, getting the things done that we're supposed to get done on time. And so people were asking us, what do you think about this? We decided to research it. But there was one specific story, a client that I'd worked with 2 or 3 times before, who came to us with a story, and he said, the question was, I'm going to tell you a story, and how do I improve our culture over this? So some of you have heard this already, but this is the reason why we've gotten so passionate about this particular subject. So consumer services company on the East Coast, all the way up from New York, all the way down to Florida, almost a $2 billion company. About half of their stores are corporate-owned and half of them are franchises. They're owned by a very large private equity firm out of Munich. It's a really good business, but they found out that they had a strategic flaw because they had a supplier agreement with one large company that provided 5 products that they used in 90% of their transactions. So in that agreement was the thing called a copycat clause, which said that if one of those 5 products would ever be suddenly unavailable or fail, they had a short window of time that they could invent their own product, a copycat, and that it would also allow them to break out of their supplier agreement. So as you might imagine, one of those products failed. And the CEO and the CFO got together and said, what should we do? So they asked their executive team, what should we do? And they decided, let's go for it. They had to do something transformational in a short period of time, and they all talked about how it would be fabulous for their branding, it would be awesome for their net income. So the CFO hosted this meeting, and they all said, ready, set, go, and they disappeared. So about halfway in that window, the CEO was starting to worry. Hadn't really heard anything about this big special project. So he called a Zoom meeting and got everybody together and said, I want to hear how it's going. The reporting was fuzzy and unfocused. They were halfway through. They weren't even close to halfway done getting this through. So what he did was pushed everybody else aside and said, okay, I'm in charge now. Started barking orders. Said, we're going to meet every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time, and we need progress reports every single day till this is done. 3 weeks later, things were going much, much better, so much so that he got a little cocky. He started telling some of the other people inside the private equity company that he had some really, really good news he was going to share, and he bought an airplane ticket to fly over to Munich to one of their quarterly meetings of their CEOs. He hadn't been there in several years. So he was sitting on the airplane with the door closed when he got this text message. Hey, sorry to tell you, we missed the new product filing deadline. The project is dead. He responds with, wow, what just happened? How is that possible? Well, the product label designer felt too much pressure, froze with anxiety, took a PTO mental health day at 10 a.m., didn't tell anyone, no one followed up. Who's accountable? He said, well, that's what I was asking you. He replied with, I have to think about this. And then he did what all of us do. He got pissed. Started making a list of all the people that were going to get fired over this. But, he had a 9-hour airplane flight. And so after he kind of went through that rage and embarrassment, and remember now he has to invent a story to tell the people he's going to see about why this thing he was going to talk about didn't work. And so in his own embarrassment, he sort of had a moment of intellectual honesty where he said, you know what, this doesn't really surprise me much. Our CFO has a history of starting things off with a big pep rally and then not really finishing anything. This has happened multiple times. And honest to God, that supply chain manager has a reputation of being kind of a bully sometimes. And I've known about it. HR has written him up several times, and I overlooked it. And I really am very fond of that product designer. She's one of our bright, shining stars. It must have been horrible for her to do what she did. If anybody's going to get fired over this, it probably should be me. So in that moment, we've all had those moments. It's cathartic. You're like, oh, geez. He thought about the airplane that he was on. And he said, you know what? It's fascinating to me that airplanes are so unbelievably effective and efficient. I'm 100% sure this plane's going to land in Munich safely and probably on time. And what thought went through his head was, it's all because of clarity and teamwork, neither of which he had. And so in that moment in time, he said to me, I want to build a culture around this concept. Only one pilot lands the plane. And we're learning this is powerful. I can tell you inside the executive teams that we're coaching right now, it's like 37 or so. They're using the who's the pilot language. This is so simple. But what people told us in the research was the reason why accountability is so misunderstood is people are not taking the time to identify who's the pilot that's supposed to land the plane. What's fascinating about this is that pilots know who's going to land the plane. There are two in the cockpit, but they know which one of them is supposed to do it. They also know they need teamwork for people on the ground and in the air. And then finally, out of self-preservation, they invite the observation of other people and they want to be criticized in the middle of a flight. What we're finding is that this metaphor is really powerful because no pilot would get in a cockpit of a plane, especially a commercial airline, without a flight plan. And we nod our heads, but I'm telling you, we did the research. We are not being very effective as organizational leaders in building flight plans for the things we're expecting our people to do. What we learned is that CFO has lots of meetings, but no plans. So this metaphor is cool because it's about mission clarity, role clarity, and mid-course corrections, and mostly personal ownership. So here's what we learned in this whole thing, that we have been taught by literature and our MBA programs and things to think about accountability as a discipline of execution. It's a left brain mentality, logical, analytical, linear, you can see this, but it's kind of a rules-based method of doing things. And what we learned is in organizations that talked about accountability as healthy, they thought about it as a right brain thing. A negotiated reality between people that have respect for each other, and a relational concept. I'm going to deliver for you because I care so much about our relationship. This is a profound shift. And it's proving out in the original research and all the follow-up research we're doing through workshops. It's really stunning and is very much aligned with goodness. So the research hypothesis was this. Healthy accountability comes from strong interpersonal connections and managers who are skilled at building shared commitments. And what we learned in that context is that 62% of the people who work for us think accountability is negative, punitive, and investigative. This is happening on our watch. And they think it's being unfairly applied, which is very demotivating. But the good news is that people say, yes, when we see healthy accountability, it makes our business better, and firsthand, I've seen it work. So we have fertile soil to plant this new thinking in. So part of the cool part of this research that will come back over and over again in this breakfast over the next 18 months or so is that healthy accountability now is defined as when people feel like they're winning together in an environment where individuals take personal ownership, embrace the support of the team to deliver quality work on time. And when we have this conversation in the context of teamwork and team development, people say, yep, hell yeah, that's what we want right there. So it's really reinforcing to remember 95% of the people we surveyed absolutely want to deliver quality work on time, which debunks the myth that we heard when we put the steering team together, that they all walked into the steering team with this basic assumption, people just don't want to be accountable anymore. So that's on us as senior executives and people who are driving our culture. So the biggest surprise in the research, and this is probably a blind spot because the steering team was all senior executives, we missed how important our role modeling is to how people think about accountability in their organizations. This is why we bring to you positive role models for healthy accountability as our speakers. Our slate this year in the fall is, first, we're starting with physician leadership. Our speaker today, John Pryor. Then also our speaker for October is here in the room today, Sean Moran. She's going to talk to us about the CHRO's perspective in this. And then finally, we just could not avoid the pun. Jude Bricker is really turning Sun Country Airlines into a very high-performing organization where people actually do like their work. And the fact that we got an airplane on the front cover of the book, we could not have Jude as our speaker. So we hope that you follow us on this journey. I'll be back here in a few minutes to introduce you to our speaker, but I want you to continually think about this formula here. This is what motivates us to do something different. We're really, really honored when you have fun here at the Good Leadership Breakfast, but we're really honored when you take this and you find somebody to share the urgency and go back and do something differently. So that's the thought I'm going to leave you with before I come back and introduce you to our speaker. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for one of our favorite traditions here at the Good Leadership Breakfast. At your local hardware store, this is called the handy paint pail, but here at Good Leadership, we call it the bucket of goodwill. So this is a fun tradition we have. We'd ask you to think about your generosity and your aspirational thinking at the same time. If we make a donation to this bucket, our friends at Handy Paint Pail will match that, and we'll collect those. So we take cash. We take IOUs. We know where, if you registered, we know where to find you. But would ask you to go around, think about how lucky and grateful we are to be in this beautiful venue with a wonderful breakfast today, and share some of your generosity. Now, the most important part, put your business card in here, because at the end we will be drawing, and you, if are the winner, you get to come up and donate all the proceeds to the charity of your choice. We have raised just over $447,000 in the history of this tradition. So excited to keep that going. We'll give you a few minutes to do the bucket of goodwill.
All right, everybody. Thank you for your generosity, your aspiration. Again, make sure your business cards, and if you don't have a business card, there's little cards on the table that you can write down your name and contact info, so when we draw to give the money away, you'll be in for that drawing, because we know there's a lot of entities that need a lot of support right now, and this is one of those opportunities where you can do exactly that. So, we're going to jump back in to stirring up conversations at your tables around this idea of healthy accountability. You'll see in your handouts today a flyer that says the senior leader as the individual contributor role model. We're going to do a couple poll questions, then we'll move this into a table conversation. But the big thing to think about here, if you're new to the healthy accountability conversation, Paul laid out the definition before. Right, there's implications of healthy accountability within the individual level, within the team level, within when you are working with other people, and then that delivering quality work on time. If we think about what that is, that's a job of an organization. So organizational level, team level, individual implication, all these levels work with one another, and it gets rather complex. So today we're going to really be looking at how does that senior leader affect that newest person in your team, that person who's literally on their first day of work. How do those things connect? Go ahead and open up your Slido again on your phone, and you're going to see a question. Senior leaders in our organization role model healthy accountability in ways that are visible to employees. But right now, as we look at this first question, 1 out of 4 of you disagree. 1 out of 5 of you don't really know. And at the top, right, about 60% going like, yeah, I see my senior leaders doing what they expect from everybody who is an individual contributor in this organization. There's a lot of muddiness. If you think about your organization, there are people walking down the hall and they're not wearing a t-shirt that I don't see healthy accountability being role model next to someone who says, well, I do. So how do you know where that clarity is? It really comes from that voice top saying, here's what we're doing here together. Let's do one more poll question. Individuals in our organization take personal ownership for the outcomes of their work. So rather than looking at that senior leader, now we're looking at every single individual contributor within that space, which, secret, includes your senior leaders as well. Right? We are all individual contributors. We just have different roles. It's always fun to look at what the fingerprint of a room full of people shows. About 25% of you disagreed that senior leaders are really doing that role modeling. About 12% of you think that the individual contributor in the space is not doing the healthy accountability game. What does this kind of say? That the expectation is accountability is something that is expected from top down, rather than something that is intrinsically a part of everything that we do. Darren Lynch, who you heard speak before, said probably one of the most profound things to me within this healthy accountability conversation when we were chatting. And Darren was like, it never occurred to me that accountability could be seen as a non-positive thing. Like, how would someone not see accountability as being good? And then Darren's aha was like, but I've been sitting. Now again, Darren is a phenomenal individual contributor as an organizational leader. But even from that seat to go, I never thought that the person who's on their first day of work would go, accountability is, am I going to get in trouble if I don't? This room of 117 people who have about 100 to 120 people, you're saying we see more accountability effort from that individual contributor than we do from that organizational leader. And this is not it's a reframe. Right? How do we see that this is something that we all have to do? So if you go ahead and jump to that worksheet, you're going to see the pathway to healthy accountability laid out on the right-hand side here. Right? The pathway to healthy accountability has 5 research-proven, tried, tested, true pit stops where we can really go, if you focus on these things, you're going to see some really nice positive kickback in accountability within your workplace. A couple of them live on the team side of the infinity symbol. A couple live on the organizational side, that kind of who's leading the game and the vision. But in the middle, where we keep swinging back through, is individuals seeking accountability. Now, there are a couple of questions here for you to speak through with your table. The first one, share a time you have seen a senior leader role model healthy accountability. What did it look like? What impacts did this role modeling have throughout the organization? Now, this question's asked very specifically. It's not in your organization. It may be something that you've seen externally or something that's been raised up within some organization on this planet. But then the second question is, consider a time when healthy accountability was lacking in your organization. How did senior leaders respond to move things forward or didn't respond? Now, I'll remind you, accountability 2/3 of the time is seen as punitive. Healthy accountability is something that 95% of people in your organization want. So if right now, hey, where are my senior leaders in the room? Hey, senior leaders, yeah. You may be going right now, I feel spotlit, or I feel attacked, or I feel that lump in the belly. No, this is the opportunity to go, how do we recalibrate our perspective on how we are all individual contributors who have different opportunities within the flight planning analogy. So talk amongst your table mates here for about 5-6 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and do one more poll question.
Okay, I hear a lot of wonderful, interesting discussions, so thank you for taking that time and sharing within your tables. This brings us to our last poll question today. So after your discussion, what one word would you use to describe how you're feeling about the future of healthy accountability in your organization?
All right, so as we look up on the screen, anytime we have these little conversations, it's always great to go, so how do you translate this? How do you take this out of this room and go, you know what? Here's what I'm feeling about accountability today. Here's where we're going. The big words on the screen, optimistic, hopeful, excited, and they continue to populate. If you're like, ooh, optimistic's the big word, what was your word? Take that out of this room. I have one of my colleagues here, Cynthia, a good leadership coach and wonderful human all around, just to share a little bit about what the table conversation was like that she was a part of. Cynthia.
Good morning, everyone. So we had a really good conversation. We have a couple people that are in middle, average size businesses, and the CEO is in another location, and people do not have clarity. They don't have goals, they don't have accountability, and things of that nature. So today I'm hoping that they can take the lesson that they learned back to their organization so that they can start with the accountability, healthy accountability, and you can buy the book when it comes out.
How's that for a plug? Thanks, Cynthia. No, but think about that. How can you influence whether you are the individual contributor on your first day or you're that senior leader who's literally driving the vision forward? That's what this research continues to show. Julie.
Okay, with that, I'd like to welcome Paul Bods back to the stage.
Thank you. So if you follow us on any of the social media, you know that we are venturing into the work of physician leadership. A lot of the work we do is in healthcare. In general, across the healthcare spectrum, the more involved physicians are in making decisions about the future of the organization, the better the quality of the care, the more sustainability of the system. But not all physicians want to be leaders. And so this group of people said yes to being a part of a steering team. We set this group up about 6 months ago, and there are a dozen physicians coming in from all over the country to Minneapolis today, and we start tonight. We have it goes from 5 o'clock on Friday till noon on Sunday. We're going to talk about business leadership, about personal leadership, organizational leadership, and then leading for clinical outcomes. And you'll see that John Pryor up there is right next to me because he was really one of the spiritual leaders that said this has to happen. We're so grateful for the opportunity to do this. It's already been rewarding, and we haven't even met the people who are coming for the program yet. So that's one of the reasons why John is speaking here today. I have known John for a very short period of time, introduced through Troy Simonson, who many of you in the room know. What's fascinating is that he has a lot of education. He's one of those guys that liked going to school. Yeah, not me. He's trained in all sorts of things like this, and you'll see the name Proliance up there. Sort of in your mind, if you're thinking about what that is, sort of think about Summit Orthopedics and TCO here in our market. That's kind of how Proliance is in Seattle. And what I find fascinating, we had an awesome conversation about the fact that, I told you the age of my kids, between 30 and 35. So John's got a 10-year-old up through a sophomore in high school. So he's got this big, huge job and these kids that really, really need mom and dad. And so for him to be here for essentially 4 days is a really heavy lift. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this conversation. Please join me in welcoming John Pryor. Absolutely. Okay, so here we go. Yeah. So you are both a physician and an executive.
Yeah.
Successful in both ways. So when you hear the words healthy accountability, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for being here. This is an honor, and this is unbelievable energy in this room. But to your question, I've really embraced the term since we've started talking. I think it's great because it acknowledges accountability, right, which is critical for any organization. It's an absolute necessity, right, executed to varying degrees, as we've been talking about this morning. But it also recognizes the variability with which people interact with even the term, right, like you were talking about before. And so I think that ultimately leads to, as a leader, you have to recognize that you need to optimize a person, a team, whatever, their kind of stress performance curve, if you will. Yeah,
that's right.
Right? And that's different for everyone, different for every person, different for every team. But if you can do that, which I think boils down to effective communication, then you have a better running organization.
Well, you and I have spent time talking about the concept of healthy. That will come back in our conversations.
And how that relates to surgeon culture.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So let's step back. Please explain to us, where and how did you grow up?
I grew up, I'm a Midwest guy, so I live in Seattle now, but I grew up outside of Indianapolis on a farm. I have a brother, I have a sister, went to public high school nearby. My mom died pretty young, but and went on to, I actually did not like school when I was young, but eventually embraced it.
So do you remember, what was your path to deciding you wanted to be a physician?
Yeah, so that's, it was a pretty big pivot actually, because I was not a good student when I was young, right? Plenty of opportunity, at least average intelligence and education was emphasized, for sure. My mom was a teacher, but it was early in college. So I got done with high school, didn't go to my last semester because I hated it, but finished and stumbled my way into college, thought I had life figured out, right? I had a girlfriend, a motorcycle, and a job, and what else? I don't need a lot else. But my first year of college didn't go very well, right? And so it was that summer I got pretty down about it. It was a real, maturation, divine inspiration, ego, right? Something said, okay, this isn't me, this doesn't reflect me, and that was the goal that I set. And so that, I think, has driven so much of my existence in every way, as a parent, as a leader now, of that transition hinged completely on that clarity of purpose, right? From to, for whatever reason, decided this was the goal, and I couldn't, not really answering your question of like, how did I decide that? I don't know, but that's what I decided.
You must have found like chemistry or something easier, biology
or something stimulating. I definitely had influences in my life, for sure. Like there are influences in my life that
what I'm trying
make
to say
it seem
is
more obvious.
We all want our doctors to have gotten A's in everything.
Yeah, so I did.
Yeah.
At some point, like I've got the transcripts, but once I decided I cared, but if we're that clarity of purpose, it is maybe a little bit different. Most of my colleagues, they did. I feel like they knew what they wanted to do when they came out of the womb or something. That wasn't my journey. That wasn't my journey.
So once you got into med school, we talk about this concept of pivot points a lot. Pivot points are when you get thrown in a new direction, maybe you didn't even see it coming, and you look back and it was really, really important. What were a couple of pivot points from you from that deciding you wanted to go to med school to where you're at today?
Yeah, I mean, that was a foundational one for sure for my career. I think, of course, there's some bumps in the road, but but it worked out. And I think later on, and organizationally, a huge pivot for me. So, kind of my current leadership role, in addition to clinical medicine, which is a number of years later, of course, that that was a pretty big pivot. It's a lot of thinking, and frankly, at the time, not sure I was ready for it. Right? So our organization, this is 2020-ish, right? So there's some things going on.
Yeah,
then,
geez,
right?
the world.
So that really brought to light a lot of sort of just suboptimal realities in our organization that were glossed over. Well, people were content, right? That highlighted some decision making that an increasing number of us were dissatisfied with, right? And so there was some executive turmoil also in our C-suite. Our board changed quite a bit, myself included. I'm kind of part of that wave coming onto our board where we were taking an honest and hard look at how we were doing things, right? And so that's sort of the dissatisfaction piece, I guess. And my predecessor, who had been and he had done phenomenal amounts of work for 8 years, and he was ready to change. And so, we looked around the room and said, well, what's this going to look like? And so, at some point, despite really the timing didn't make sense, but the opportunity was there. There's clearly dissatisfaction, and I was surrounded by some really influential people, some of whom will be joining us this weekend, who started to convince me that I could serve as that bridge between some of the legacy decision making and sort of this new direction we were charting. And so
the opportunity was some new energy.
Yeah.
The dissatisfaction was the guy that was doing the job didn't want to do it anymore, and it wasn't being done very well.
Yeah, I'm not going to pick on the person.
That's right.
There was a lot of the organization had evolved a lot in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you gathered people who are willing to share that sense of urgency. I think that's important. So physicians, we've talked a lot about this. We've talked about the OR. We've talked about the metaphor between the OR and the airplane and how. So let's just talk about that transition. When you decide, okay, I want to lead, what do you think most physicians need to really learn in order to make that transition?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's some analogies to some of the pilot conversation too, but the physicians by nature or environment are accustomed to this absolute accountability, right? And they are phenomenal individual contributors, right? They're good critical thinkers. But that they don't necessarily have the training or the background for applying those skills in organizational settings, right? I think there's some systemic factors that sort of amplify that tendency too. But so how do we change that? Well, I think first you population of people, and hopefully we have 12 of them coming this weekend, who will recognize that there is a skill set outside of their existing clinical and academic achievements that's worth pursuing, right, in and of itself. Just acknowledge that, because there are these cultural norms within medicine that kind of like the admins versus the clinicians thing. Well, let's bridge that. So acknowledge that and align yourself with an organization where that physician perspective is valued. Gain the skill set to kind of fight the culture that's not consistent with that from within, or align yourself with an organization that really is physician-centric. But first and foremost, get the skill set and recognize that it's worth the effort. So
part of that skill set we've discovered is that when you're trained in the scientific method, as doctors, we can't, it's accurately diagnosing the problem is an amazing skill set. And also, the people that you lead don't like to be seen as a problem or with a problem. So turning that off and figuring out how we can actually build something together, which is also different than fixing. Fixing is a core skill. You talked about the broken arm that needs to be fixed. You know how to do that.
And there's instant gratification to it. Right? It's of course a long-term event for the patient, right? But in the profession, there is a reward. There's instant feedback. That doesn't exist in a lot of industries, a lot of fields. As a leader, right? You're charting a course that's far down the road, and that is That's not necessarily the environment that physicians or surgeons in particular are accustomed to, right? You have a well-aligned team around a certain thing that you are going to accomplish for an individual in a very vulnerable kind of state. Maybe their most vulnerable state they've ever been in. But within hours, that's probably...
well, it's over for you.
Correct. But that's what we're talking about. It's different management of team, though. We're talking about accountability and how do you take those lessons and apply them later. We have to acknowledge that in more long-term strategic organizational goals, you don't have that instant feedback. The plane doesn't land a few hours from when you take off, so to speak. Right?
Well, we've had lots of lawyers come and sit in that chair who learn how to lead organizationally. And one of the things that they need to learn in order to make that transition we're talking about here is to stop seeing every discussion as an argument that they need to win. You cannot believe how much the good leadership coaches have given that advice. So let's talk specifically about physicians. You talked about some of those skills. And what are some of the baseline skills that you think, looking back on your transition, you needed to learn that you didn't know?
Change my communication style, for sure. And I'm still working on that. That's a perpetual process. But I value, and I think this is true of most of my colleagues, I value pretty dense, succinct communication. Right? And that has its place and definitely my comfort zone. But if you're trying to really lead change, a major initiative at an organizational level, that doesn't really work, right? Sort of the, I'll screw up this quote, but the greatest mistake in communication is the assumption that it occurred, right?
Everybody heard it,
right? So just a different style, Though it often feels redundant to me, is more effective, and I've seen the lack of communication lead to that's at the core of most kind of mistakes that you see made, or the suboptimal outcomes at an organizational level. And so really leaning into just adopting a different communication style and putting communication first and foremost, frankly. Like a lot of, Troy, who's here, a lot of our one-on-ones is about how do we message X, right, most effectively.
Well, you mentioned the mistakes that come from poor communication. Can you think of a mistake that you're willing to share with us, live on the internet, right? Something that you learned from that was a mistake?
More specifically, so that I'm trying to think how far to get in the weeds. So it definitely hinges around communication, just the things that you just cannot believe haven't been heard, right? Major initiatives, like significant integration efforts that we've made where we simply didn't communicate it well enough, right? Because people were surprised, whether it makes sense on kind of my end or not. People were surprised, which means it wasn't communicated as well as it should have been.
Well, underneath this is the concept that, any of us who are leading ambiguous change in an organization, it can't be said enough, you just reinforced that, but the idea that we need to look for and celebrate small wins, which is also not something that gets celebrated much or taught in how you got taught to be a physician.
Right.
So we're constantly giving this advice, saying, okay, what's going well right now? And we often get deer in headlights look. So what's going well right now at Proliance when I ask that question?
Improvements in our culture, for sure. So the one company culture has been, historically we're a pretty divisional organization, right, with a lot of autonomy in our different geographic areas. And over the last couple of years, I'd say we have made phenomenal progress in sort of a one Proliance culture.
And what are you looking for? What are those signals that would have you say, yeah, we're making great progress in our culture?
The way we communicate with each other, I think makes it pretty obvious, and it's as simple as more use of the term Proliance, as opposed to individual physician brands, individual office names, which Mary just that makes sense. Just that it's just using it, just even talking about it, Proliance culture, I think is the clearest evidence.
So we think about measuring shifts like that in better, faster, and easier. Can you think of anything that's going better, faster, and easier because the culture is improving?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some collaborative efforts across our service lines that I think wouldn't happen without embracing that culture and that we're working together, and that translates directly toward measurable efficiencies.
Yeah, less
Yeah, for
reworks,
sure.
less confusion.
Less redundancy.
Yeah,
like
awesome.
operationally, less redundancy. Yeah.
So we always do success habits for success habit research for our speakers. It's sort of one of the things that we can do to give back to these people who give us an amazing amount of time. So somebody from our team interviews a few people that John mentions, and we search for what have they learned about your style that they really admire about you and would even consider repeating in their own leadership if they were to move on to something else. And so we have 3 statements, and the first one is, you demonstrate joy in your job. Now, we've heard a lot of success habits come across this stage. This is the first time we've seen this one, and it was unanimous with the people we talked about. How does that make you feel, and what do you think that means?
That's an amazing compliment. That's my first reaction. I mean, it really is an honor to do what we do for my primary job being a surgeon. I mean, it is a tremendous honor, and if you're honest with yourself, it's very humbling to be able to serve that role in people's lives, right? And so that comes across, and however I do or don't conduct myself is a tremendous compliment.
And I think it's really important too, because the research we've done, the more people enjoy their colleagues and find joy in their work, the higher the sense of accountability is. It's like we do our best work for people we love. Yeah, so I think that's absolutely fantastic. So the second then, that you know how to honor the awkward pause in important conversations.
Yeah.
We've never heard that one before either.
Awkward pause. Some ideas, the most important moments need a little air to breathe, right? Let them develop. Sometimes the most powerful communication is what's not said, not what is. I mean, I think I'll take it. I like that.
And of course, as coaches and facilitators, we know how to use silence in order to help move stuff along.
Yeah.
What a concept, huh?
Yeah.
So then, finally, another huge compliment. Balances autonomy with staying engaged. What does this mean to you when you read that?
Well, autonomy is a huge word in our organization, right? We are a group of independent physicians who, I don't know if there is a word that gets used more often in our organization than autonomy.
Yeah.
It's highly, highly valued. But, I mean, with the theme of the day, right, that has to be balanced with some level of accountability, right? And so that's flattering to be recognized for balancing those well.
Well, it's easy to see why you're succeeding. I mean, leading with a sort of a shared commitment philosophy, that's the only way powerful people actually get along. And clearly that's happening at Proliance. Where's JC?
Front and center.
Yeah, fantastic. So do you have a question
we got a question
from the
audience. We got Brock here from Blue Cross Blue Shield who's got a question for you, John.
Oh, awesome.
Brock, since you're up and center, you can just stay seated. But Brock's right here, everybody.
Yeah.
On spot here.
Yeah.
John, thanks for coming to Minnesota. Hopefully you got a nice Minnesota welcome. It might take a while to leave here.
Yeah.
Since you do have multiple facilities, multiple clinics and opportunities, how do you connect and stay connected in a world that's increasingly digital, increasingly very advanced, real-time information and data is going faster than a lot of us can keep up. So how do you stay current in a very, very digital world?
Let me make sure I understand the question. How do current with the technology or current with information with all the distractions?
With the people, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the distractions of technology. I think we're all fighting a lot, right? And I think I don't know if I have the secret sauce of how to fight that, but it's definitely a challenge. But you have to reach out to people. You have to make the effort. We're spread out geographically, so technology is largely our friend, really, for staying in touch. We're able to rope in more diverse participation across our care centers by using technology.
Well, you and I last night were talking as we were driving back from the meeting we had. We were talking about your commute and where you live in relationship to your office and to the hospital and stuff like that. And actually, Troy, who's here today, goes back and forth between Seattle and Minneapolis. And we actually got you guys together like face to face, and that had been a long time. So obviously you figured out how to thrive. And actually, you and I just met interpersonally yesterday for the first time. It was all Zoom calls, basically. Yeah, it's fascinating. So you guys must have figured that out as a part of your culture.
Yeah, it is ingrained, of course, like all of our organizations, right? The 2020 accelerated that, of course,
question.
But it has broadened our participation in the physician leadership role for sure, because simply just logistically, we have, depending on traffic, 2 or 3 hours or more between our different geographic regions. So engaging physicians at the poles of that is less challenging than it used to be.
Well, I'm really grateful that you made the trip from Seattle, and you're going to spend the whole weekend with us.
Yeah, excited. It's
here
a good
comes
launch.
JC here. Oh, actually, I skipped one thing that's really, really important. We've been asking this question for more than 10 years. And I'm just really curious to find out, through your experience, how do you know for sure? What sort of evidence that goodness is a proven concept for you in your leadership?
Yeah. I've certainly had a couple of challenging moral issues or at an organizational level. Like straight up things that were heading in a direction that were not consistent with my own values anyway. And stuck my neck out because when it's black and white, it's black and white, but there is a gray area, right? And I've stuck my neck out at least a couple of times I can think of that, which is nerve-wracking for sure, by definition. But eventually, 2 things happen. One is someone says, "I'm so glad you spoke up." So there's a feedback. But maybe more clearly and more consistently is, when do you ever sleep better? Right? Or when is sleep the most disruptive? If I'm not conducting myself or making whatever effort I can for the organization to stay consistent with my own values, I don't sleep a wink. I don't know. That's not real scientific, but that's.
Anybody else
That's the real answer,
right? Yeah. Well, it's beautiful. Great conversation. Thank you very much for making
thank
your
you.
way here.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
It.
So, JC. Oh no, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I'm excited to bring the bucket of goodwill up here on stage. Really grateful. Today we have raised $1,897 with the generous match from our friends at Handy Paint Pail. That's $3,794 that will go to a charity of somebody's choice. And what's very exciting is that puts us over $450,000. So $451,000 raised total.
How about that?
How about that?
Mark it on the calendar. Before you do that, can we go back one thing? We have an honoraria. Will you tell us a little bit about this charity that you chose?
I'd love to. I'm glad I get the chance to say this. So Canopy Scholars is an organization near my home that provides tutoring and STEM programs for underprivileged kids in the area. And not only do they do a great job providing that service for them, but both of my sons have participated as tutors there, and it's been such a good experience for them. I deeply believe that you don't really understand something if you can't explain it in some way, and so developing their communication skills and fostering their participation in our community, so happy to be able to provide them some support.
Yeah, amazing. We're happy to support it as well. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay, now the big moment.
Okay, John, will you draw our winner, please?
Peak Learning Group.
Who is it?
Lisa Weinberger.
Lisa, where are you, Lisa? Where are you, Lisa? Where is she? Did she leave? Where is she? Oh, there she is. Come on up. Yeah. It's the longest walk of your life, isn't it?
Well, Lisa, welcome. Will you introduce yourself and tell us where you work?
Oh, okay. I have a microphone and everything. Wow. I'm Lisa Weinberger.
Yeah, that's
Usually I have to treat it like a... Okay. So I'm with Peak Learning Group. That is my own coaching practice.
Good.
And let's see. I want this to go to Alexandra House, which is domestic violence.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you so
excellent.
much.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, too, by the way. Good. Let's give it up for John Pryor one more time. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
This is a shameless plug. You can get the book online. We'll celebrate the book when we have Jude Bricker here because we can't avoid the pun. And we should be shipping books the second half of this month. I've written now 9 books. This was the most stimulating and the most difficult one because we're really wrestling with some very important data that we collected. It's really been fun, and I can't wait to hear your comments about it. I want to promote now October and November. Sean Morin, I've known Sean for more than a decade. She's had a lot of CHRO roles in this community. And now she's really one of the nation's thought leaders on the CHRO role in culture, and particularly in accountability. I think you're just going to find her fascinating. And then, obviously, Jude Bricker. Jude and I know each other through some mutual friends who have been coming to the Good Leadership Breakfast for a long time. It was kind of a long-term courtship to decide if he was a good fit. And we had a really interesting conversation because I'm like way up here on Delta. And we've had some good family experiences and some not good family experiences on Sun Country. And I said, are you willing to talk to me about that? And he said, the good news is most of those things were more intense in the past. And so we're going to have a little tension on the stage, which he's embracing. So I hope you're here in November to see that. Like I said, there are a bunch of physicians coming in from all over the country. We're going to be engaging in a cohort-based action learning model over 10 months. There are coaches that glue together a cohort group. They're going to be diving into business leadership, personal leadership, lots of 7Fs talking that, organizational leadership and clinical leadership. And I'm going to call out the partners at the bottom. Health Partners, who's also a sponsor of this particular breakfast. Atos Health is an organization who's in the room here all the time. People coming from Ortho, Virginia. There's Proliance. We learned about them. True North is Troy Simonson's group, and of course, Good Leadership. I want to remind you that goodness is when people thrive together in a culture of encouragement, accountability, and positive teamwork. We focused on many things in that definition over the last 15 years, but 3 years ago, we were encouraged to really focus in on the accountability word. And what we learned is without accountability, without healthy accountability, the goodness pays equation doesn't work. So anything that's not healthy in accountability is really on our watch. It's caused me to rethink a lot of how I show up and operate in my role as the CEO of an organization. The book's coming. We already talked about that. I want to focus on this one last thing here. You're going to hear me talk about this a lot. If you are entertained at the breakfast, I love that. And I want you to come back and make it's a happy place. And also, whichever motivates you more, the opportunity to improve your culture or just a recurring dissatisfaction that you've just had enough with, it doesn't move forward unless you find someone who shares your sense of urgency. So that's your call to action. Either bring somebody back in October, or better yet, explain this to somebody and say, you know what, we need to go arm in arm and try to do something differently in our organization to make accountability healthier. So now is where I ask my friend JC, what do we want everybody to remember about the Good Leadership Breakfast?
Goodness pays, Paul.
Yes, goodness pays. Will you say it with me? Good. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you in October. Bye.